Guess what they're called? There's primary, secondary, tertiary bronchi. So here's the secondary. See that little tiny one going off that way? That's the tertiary. That's as far as we'll go. So you got trachea. Primary bronchus is pretty short. It splits into a number of secondary bronchi, one for each lobe. Secondary bronchi go into the lobe, and then they'll split into these tertiary bronchi. So you got a trachea, lobes of the lung, visceral pleura, primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi. You follow the trachea up. This is it's called the larynx, kind of like the Adam's apple. It's a bunch of cartilaginous elements kind of just above the trachea. You see this big, wide cartilage shield right here? It's right here. That's part of the larynx. That's the thyroid cartilage. Then there's a heavy ring underneath it. I have to clean it up a little bit. That's the cricoid cartilage. And then I won't do this with all the cats, maybe just a couple, but there's a couple pieces up here I'll look at. Just give me a really big smile. See, I think they should have gotten this on the pictures, personally. I like small class sizes. All right, now this is kind of cool. We'll talk about this in lecture a bit, but if you look, let me get them up a little bit more. We're going all the way to the back of the oral cavity here. All right, of course, this is a palate, right? You know the palate, hard palate here is supported by bone. If you push on it, it won't give. But then when I get right here, see how it's kind of squishy? Soft palate all the way to the back. Now, what's different in cats and humans? Right behind the tongue, if you watch right here, I'm going to pull a little thing out. See that thing that plopped out? That's the epiglottis. It's also part of the larynx. In humans, it's down low. In the cat, it's up above the palate, which is typical for all mammals except for humans. So that's the epiglottis. That's like a little flap over the glottis. When you swallow, it closes, so your food doesn't go down your airways. When you're breathing, it's open. So that's that little flap on the back of the tongue. So the larynx, it actually has 5 cartilage elements. You only need to know 3 of them on the cat. The thyroid cartilage here, cricoid cartilage, and the epiglottis. I'm going to go ahead and cut this whole thing out. Now, you don't need to cut this out on all the cats. I'll just cut it out on 1 or 2 of them. It sounds like that's a dentist. Don't go to that dentist. Yeah, I get a bit of the hyoid bone. There's hyoid bone in there. Tissue attaches to it very tightly. This is a piece of the hyoid bone. There's that horseshoe-shaped bone that your larynx is attached to. It's a piece of it right there. But this is your pharynx here, and if you look, there's two holes in here. There's one back here, and there's another underneath the epiglottis right here. Maybe. There we go. So that one in the back is the esophagus. That's that muscular tube in the back that goes to the stomach. You'll see they'll separate here. And this one in the front, the forceps are in, that's the trachea that goes down to the lungs. So when you swallow, food and air are both in the pharynx, your throat. When you swallow, this epiglottis closes so nothing can go down in the airways, and all the food's directed back to the esophagus. And of course, vocal cords will be in there. You don't need them in the cat. So there's your thyroid cartilage. It's one at the top, pretty big shield-shaped bit. There's a heavy ring here. It's called the cricoid cartilage. And then the epiglottis is that piece sticking up right there. There are two other small bits of cartilage. You don't need them on the cat. Now up here, I'm going to take this soft palate, and I'm going to cut back into the soft palate. And I'm actually in what they call a nasopharynx here. Do you remember the auditory tubes or the eustachian tubes from last semester? That's what I'm looking for. Eustachian tubes go into... You grab me a paper towel. So this is up what's called the nasopharynx, above the soft palate. And there should be on either side... There it is. Let's find one over here. Right there is a little slit-like opening just inside of the needle. That, right there, the needle's in it, that's the opening to the eustachian tube or auditory tube. There's one on this side as well. If I push it through the little slit-like opening right there. I'll make this one kind of semi-permanent here. There, that's in the eustachian tube. Now it's a little better mark. So you open nasopharynx, that's tough out, that's the eustachian tube. You got the pharynx, trachea, primary, secondary, tertiary bronchi, diaphragm. What else on that sheet? See, we've got diaphragm, we've got intercostal muscles, of course, those you know from last semester maybe a little bit. I get the ribs here. Of course, you know ribs, you know sternum, right? Sternum's in the bag somewhere. It's not on this cat anymore. The muscles between the ribs, those are your intercostal muscles. Sinuses will be on the model, concha bones on the model, meatus on the external nares, you know, those are no big deal. Those are your nostrils. Soft palate, hard palate, nasal cavities really won't be on the cat. Auditory tube we did. Oral membranes we did. Pharynx. Parts of the pharynx you won't need until you get to the human model. Filarius, thyroid, cricoid. Auditory did. Trachea, primary, secondary, tertiary. Hilum or a hilus or a hyla is just, if you have an organ with an indentation in it or tubes going out, blood vessels and airways, that's the hilum. And esophagus we did. Okay. A couple things with the model.